The rooftop party was supposed to be a celebration. Liora had just closed her biggest real estate deal of the year, and naturally, she wanted everyone to witness her triumph. I stood there nursing my beer, watching my wife hold court like some corporate princess while her friends fawned over her success. "Tanner, you must be so proud," gushed Tessa, Leora's best friend since college. Her smile never reached her eyes when she looked at me. Never had, not since that awkward night years ago when she'd made a pass and I'd turned her down publicly. "Sure am," I replied, keeping my voice neutral. After 15 years in IT consulting, I'd learned to read people's code. Tessa's was malicious. That's when the dare happened. "I bet you $50 Liora won't kiss Keaton," Tessa announced loudly, her voice cutting through the party chatter. She pointed at my best friend since high school, who was leaning against the bar looking uncomfortable. The crowd turned toward us, like sharks smelling opportunity. Leora's eyes lit up with that competitive gleam I'd fallen in love with, back when we were young and stupid. "Make it 200, Liora shot back, already moving toward Keaton. "And you're on." I watched my wife of 12 years grab my best friend's hand and drag him toward the bathroom. The party guests erupted in laughter and cheers. Someone started chanting, "Kiss, kiss, kiss," like we were all back in high school. They disappeared for exactly 4 minutes and 37 seconds. I know because I counted every single one. When they emerged, Liora was waving a crisp $200 bill above her head like a trophy. Keaton's face was flushed, his hair messed up, and he wouldn't meet my eyes. "Pay up, Tessa," Liora crowed, tucking the money into her designer purse. "Easiest cash I ever made." The crowd roared approval. Someone slapped me on the back and said, "Lucky guy, Tanner. Your wife's got guts." Lucky. Right. I smiled and nodded and played the good sport while something cold and calculating settled in my chest. Just a bet, I told myself. Just harmless fun between friends. But as I watched Keaton whisper something in Leora's ear that made her giggle, I realized I'd been playing the wrong game entirely. That night, after Liora fell asleep beside me, I sat in my home office staring at the glow of my computer screen. 20 years of IT work had taught me that everything leaves a digital trail. Everything. I started with our shared cloud storage, something Liora barely understood but used constantly for her real estate photos. What I found made my stomach turn. The photos went back 6 months. Liora and Keaton at lunch, Liora and Keaton at the gym, Liora and Keaton in his car, her hand on his thigh while he drove. Each image had metadata timestamps. Dates when I'd been at client meetings across town. Times when I'd been working late to pay for her expensive tastes. I dug deeper into our financial records. Venmo transactions I'd never noticed before. Small amounts, always from Keaton to Liora. 50 here, 100 there. Always with cryptic messages. "You win again," or "worth every penny." My wife had been taking bets from my best friend for months, and I was apparently the prize. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. The next morning, Liora hummed while making coffee, still riding high from her public victory. She wore Keaton's old college sweatshirt, something I'd never seen before. "Where'd you get that?" I asked, keeping my voice casual. "Oh, this old thing? Keaton left it in my car yesterday. Said I could keep it since it looks better on me anyway." She spun around, modeling it. "Don't you think?" "Absolutely," I said, taking a sip of coffee that tasted like ash. "When did he ride in your car?" "Tuesday, I think. His Mustang was in the shop, so I gave him a ride to the gym." She shrugged like it was nothing, like everything was nothing. But I remembered Tuesday. I'd called her around lunch, and she'd claimed to be showing houses on the other side of town. The gym was 15 minutes from our house, another lie in an apparently endless collection. That afternoon, I drove to Keaton's gym. Iron Paradise, he called it. a converted warehouse where middle-aged men pretended they were still 20 and could bench press their way out of their failing marriages. I found him at the squat rack, grunting through his routine like some kind of primitive ritual. When he saw me, his face went pale under his fake tan. "Tanner, hey buddy, didn't expect to see you here." "Yeah, well, thought I'd check out your setup. Leora's always talking about what great shape you're in." I let that hang in the air between us. "Mind if I work in?" We loaded plates in silence. I'd never been as strong as Keaton, but 15 years of carrying server equipment had given me wiry strength he didn't expect. "About last night," he started, then stopped. "What about it?" I slid under the bar, positioned myself, and lifted. The weight felt good. Honest. Just a harmless bet between friends, right? Right, exactly. Just stupid party games. I completed my set and sat up, making eye contact for the first time. "Keaton, we've been friends for 23 years, since we were 18 and thought we knew everything." He nodded eagerly. "Best friends, man. Always." "So you'd never do anything to hurt me, would you?" "Never. You know that." I stood up and moved closer, close enough that he had to crane his neck to look up at me from the bench. Good. Because if I ever found out someone was making bets about my wife behind my back, treating her like some kind of prize to be won. I let the sentence trail off, then smiled. "Well, I'd probably want to make a wager of my own." The color drained completely from his face. "Tanner, Your turn," I said, stepping back and gesturing to the squat rack. "Don't want to keep you from your routine." I walked away without looking back, but I could feel his eyes on me the whole way to the parking lot. 3 days later, I was leaving the grocery store when Sable cornered me in the parking lot. Leora's younger sister had always been the black sheep of the family, too honest, too messy, too willing to say what everyone else was thinking. "We need to talk," she said without preamble, lighting a cigarette despite the no-smoking signs everywhere. "About what?" "About the fact that my sister's treating you like garbage, and you're too nice to do anything about it." She took a long drag and blew smoke toward the sky. "Also, she owes me $5,000 from her poker games." That stopped me cold. "What poker games?" Sable laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Oh, you don't know about those either." "Jesus, Tanner. She's been playing in a weekly game for 2 years. High stakes, rich housewives with too much time and their husband's money." "That's impossible. I handle our finances." "Not all of them, apparently." She flicked ash onto the asphalt. "She's got a credit card you don't know about. Opened it using her maiden name and her parents' address. Been funding her little hobby for months." I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you're the only decent one in this whole mess, and you deserve better." She dropped her cigarette and crushed it under her heel. "Besides, I'm tired of watching her parade around like she's some kind of criminal mastermind. You want to know how deep this goes? Ask her about the videos." "What videos?" But Sable was already walking away, calling over her shoulder. "Ask her about the cloud storage, Tanner. The one she thinks you don't know about." That night, I went deeper into the digital rabbit hole. What I found made the photos look innocent. Video files. Dozens of them. Liora and Keaton in his apartment. Liora and Keaton in hotel rooms. My wife performing for the camera, while my best friend directed her like some amateur filmmaker. But the worst part wasn't the videos themselves. It was the text messages that accompanied them. Bets about what she'd be willing to do. Wagers about how far she'd go. My marriage had become their personal entertainment system, and I was the only one who didn't know the rules. I sat in my basement office until 3 in the morning, planning. By the time I went to bed, I knew exactly what I was going to do. Liora announced her plan over breakfast a week later. "I'm organizing a dinner party for Saturday. Your boss, the Hendersons, Tessa and Mark, maybe a few others. We haven't entertained in forever." "Sounds great," I said, not looking up from my tablet. What's the occasion? My promotion, obviously. I'm finally getting the senior agent position at Morrison Realty. Thought we should celebrate properly. This was news to me, but I nodded like a supportive husband. Congratulations, that's wonderful. Keaton's going to help me plan the menu. He has such good taste. She was practically glowing with excitement. This is going to be perfect. Perfect. She had no idea how right she was. I spent the week preparing. First, I traced that secret credit card Sable had mentioned. Found the statements, the poker losses, the cash advances that had been bleeding our savings dry. Then I made copies of everything. Photos, videos, financial records, text messages. I organized it all into a neat digital package, ready for distribution. Saturday evening arrived with unseasonable warmth. Our dining room filled with the usual suspects. My boss, Dave, and his wife, Patricia, our neighbors, the Hendersons, Tessa and her husband, Mark, and of course, Keaton. Liora had outdone herself. The table looked like something from a magazine, complete with flowers and candles and her grandmother's china. She wore a new dress that probably cost more than my monthly car payment. Before we eat, she announced, standing with her wine glass raised, I want to thank everyone for coming to celebrate my promotion. The table erupted in congratulations and applause. Dave raised his glass and said, Here's to Liora, who proves that talent and determination always win in the end. Actually, Liora continued, her cheeks flushed with wine and attention, I have to give credit where it's due. Keaton here has been my unofficial career counselor for months. His advice about negotiating tactics and client management has been invaluable. She beamed at him across the table. Keaton looked uncomfortable, but managed a weak smile. In fact, she went on, clearly enjoying herself, if my husband had half of Keaton's ambition, maybe he'd be more than just a glorified computer repairman. The table went quiet. Patricia Henderson actually gasped. Dave looked like he wanted to crawl under his chair. I smiled and raised my own glass. To Keaton, I said, for all his valuable contributions to our marriage. That's when I pulled out my phone and started the slideshow. The first photo appeared on our smart TV screen. Liora and Keaton at lunch, her hand covering his across the table. I'd connected my phone to the display system earlier while testing the sound system for dinner music. Tanner, what are you doing? Leora's voice was sharp with panic. Just sharing some recent photos with our guests, I said calmly, advancing to the next image. This one's from last Tuesday. You remember, honey, when you said you were showing the Patterson house all afternoon? The Patterson house was 30 miles east. The restaurant in the photo was 5 minutes from Keaton's apartment. Click. Another photo. Liora in Keaton's car, leaning across the center console to kiss his cheek. Turn it off, she hissed, but I was just getting started. Oh, this is interesting, I said, pulling up the financial records. Looks like someone's been playing poker with money from a secret credit card. $15,000 in debt so far. That's almost exactly what we had saved for the new roof. Dave was staring at his plate like it might offer an escape route. The Hendersons were whispering furiously to each other. Tessa looked like she was watching a car accident in slow motion. And here's my personal favorite, I continued, bringing up the text message thread between Liora and Keaton. A running bet about whether she could seduce the mailman. $50 says she could get him to come inside for iced tea. Keaton finally found his voice. Tanner, stop. This isn't what it looks like. Really? Because it looks like my wife and my best friend have been treating my marriage like their personal casino for the past 2 years. I stood up, still holding my phone. But wait, there's more. I'd saved the best for last, the video files. I didn't play them, even I wasn't that cruel, but the thumbnail images were enough. Leora's face went from red to white to green in the span of 10 seconds. You're sick, she whispered. You went through my private files. Your private files? I laughed, and the sound was harsh even to my own ears. Sweetheart, everything you've been doing was stored on our shared cloud account. The one I pay for. The one I set up. Did you really think I wouldn't notice gigabytes of new video files? That's when Tessa made her move. She stood up abruptly, knocking over her wine glass. This is insane. Liora, you don't have to listen to this. Sit down, Tessa, I said quietly. We're not done yet. You can't make me. Actually, I can. I pulled up another set of files. See, while I was investigating my wife's extracurricular activities, I found something interesting. Text messages between you and Keaton, planning these little bets, setting up opportunities. You've been orchestrating this whole thing, haven't you? The room went completely silent. Even the air conditioning seemed to hold its breath. Remember that night 5 years ago when you tried to kiss me at the company Christmas party? When I turned you down in front of everyone? You said you'd make me regret it someday. I looked directly at her, watching the truth dawn in her eyes. This was your someday. Tessa's husband, Mark, was staring at her like he'd never seen her before. Tessa? What is he talking about? But Tessa was already moving toward the door, her purse clutched against her chest like armor. This is crazy! You're all crazy! She was almost to the front door when Sable appeared in the doorway, blocking her exit. Going somewhere? Leora's sister asked sweetly. Party's just getting started. And that's when everything truly fell apart. Sable pushed past Tessa and walked into our dining room like she owned the place. She was dressed in jeans and a tank top, completely inappropriate for the occasion, and she was grinning like a shark. Sorry I'm late, she announced to the room. Had to make a stop at the police station. Filed a report about some missing money. Liora went rigid. What missing money? The $5,000 you borrowed from me 6 months ago. For your poker debts, remember? Except you never paid it back, and now I find out you've been funding your gambling with stolen credit cards. Sable pulled out her phone and waved it. Got all the evidence right here. Those aren't stolen cards, Liora protested weakly. Really? Because using someone else's identity to open credit accounts is fraud, last I checked, especially when that someone else is our late grandmother. The room exploded. Patricia Henderson actually screamed. Dave jumped up so fast he knocked his chair over. Mark grabbed Tessa's arm and demanded answers she couldn't give. But I wasn't done yet. Keaton, I said, my voice cutting through the chaos. Stand up. He looked like he might refuse, but something in my expression changed his mind. He rose slowly, his hands shaking. 23 years of friendship, I said, walking around the table toward him. 23 years of having your back, covering for you, believing your lies. And this is how you repay me? Tanner, please. I stopped directly in front of him, close enough to see the sweat beading on his forehead. Do you remember what I told you at the gym, about making wagers of my own? He nodded, unable to speak. Here's my bet, I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. I bet that by tomorrow morning, you'll be out of this town permanently. I bet you'll never contact my wife again. I bet you'll disappear so completely that it'll be like you never existed. You can't make me. Actually, I can. I pulled up one final file on my phone. See, while I was collecting evidence of your affair, I also found some interesting information about your business dealings. Tax evasion, insurance fraud, that little embezzlement scheme you've been running at your construction company. His face went completely white. You wouldn't. Try me. I leaned closer, lowering my voice so only he could hear. You have 12 hours to get out of town, Keaton. After that, I send everything to the IRS, the insurance companies, and the district attorney's office. Your choice. He looked around the room desperately, seeking support that wasn't coming. Liora was too busy arguing with Sable about the credit card fraud. Tessa was being interrogated by her husband. Our dinner guests were fleeing like the house was on fire. This isn't over, he whispered. Yes, I said firmly. It is. I watched him grab his jacket and stumble toward the door. He paused at the threshold, looking back one last time, but I just smiled and waved. "Give my regards to whatever rock you crawl under," I called after him. The door slammed shut, and suddenly the house felt 20 degrees warmer. I turned back to face my wife, who was standing in the wreckage of her perfect dinner party, her perfect dress stained with wine, her perfect life crumbling around her feet. "So," I said, settling back into my chair, "anyone want dessert?" The last thing I saw before Sable started laughing was the look of absolute defeat in Leora's eyes. After 2 years of being played for a fool, it was the most beautiful sight I'd ever seen. Game over. I win.